Hello, I'm Garrey Carruthers, Chancellor of the New Mexico State University System and Director of the Domenici Institute. I want to welcome you to a Domenici Institute Forum sponsored by the First National Bank of the Rio Grande. And I'm just delighted that on stage with me are 4 Aggies. All of us are Aggie graduates, and 3 of them are leaders in agricultural fields at our national level, at the Mexican national level, and at the state level. So I'm going to be tickled to death to introduce you to these fine Aggies. We'll ask some questions. The Domenici format is that students ask most of the questions, and we'll have some students introduced in just a little bit who will be asking most of the questions of our Aggie leaders in agriculture. But first, let me introduce you to the folks who are with me on the stage today. First of all, I want to introduce you to Secretary Jose Calzada, Mexico's Secretary of Agriculture. Secretary Calzada served as Senator of Mexico State of Querétaro from 2006 to 2009 when he became the state's governor. He served as governor until 2015 when President Enrique Peña Nieto appointed him to the new Ministry of Secretary of Agriculture, Livestock, Rural Development, Fisheries, and Food. Secretary Calzada holds a bachelor's degree in administration from the New World University and a master's degree from New Mexico State University. He's currently pursuing, if you can imagine having the time to do this, a PhD in economics and administrative sciences. So this is Secretary Calzada to my left here.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Undersecretary Ed Avalos, who's from Las Cruces. He's now with the United States Department of Agriculture. He is the Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs at the USDA. Prior to his appointment at the USDA, he served as Director of Marketing and Development at the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. He has over 30 years of experience in livestock and agriculture marketing in both the domestic and international arenas. Mr. Avalos grew up in a family farm in the Mesilla Valley of southern New Mexico and attended New Mexico State University, where he received both a Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degree in agriculture. This is Mr. Avalos, the Undersecretary of Agriculture of the United States Department of Agriculture.
Thank you.
And then our other leader, Aggie leader in agriculture, is Secretary Jeff Witte. On the far left, New Mexico Department of Agriculture. I knew Jeff when he was young. I didn't think he behaved well enough to find a leadership role, but he accidentally did. But he grew up on a family's ranch on the Row Mesa between Moriarty and Las Vegas, New Mexico. He attended New Mexico State University, where he received a bachelor's degree in agricultural business management and a master's degree in agricultural economics. Throughout his career, Mr. Witte has advocated for the state's farmers and ranchers. He has implemented several biosecurity initiatives to protect New Mexico agriculture, and he has been affiliated with the Department of Agriculture since 1994. He was named Secretary of New Mexico's Department of Agriculture in 2011. So I want to welcome the leaders in agriculture to this forum. I'm going to start off the questioning. I'll go through the leadership here, and then I will turn it over to students. At that time, I will introduce you to some very fine students at New Mexico State University who are prepared to ask you some questions about agriculture. First question I'll ask the Secretary. I want you to talk a little bit about international trade, particularly as it deals with agriculture products, and perhaps what's the future of international trade between Mexico, New Mexico, and the United States?
Okay, thank you very much, Chancellor, for this opportunity. Today we have had a very interesting day talking about agriculture and getting to know the programs that we have over at New Mexico State. We have because I'm an Aggie. I was here. I graduated in 1992. Actually, my daughter was born here. So there's a lot of links between my family and this university and this town, this beautiful state. But I think that the most important thing and part that we can do between our countries is just to talk about the importance of what we've been able to build in the last years, so especially the last 20 years or so since NAFTA was approved. I have the opportunity to visit Washington, to visit my friends, to visit Secretary Vilsack over at Washington and Mr. Avalos, and we have the opportunity to speak about the importance of our trade. And it has grown tremendously. and sometimes we do not know. Just last year, the trade between Mexico and the U.S. Was above $500 billion. Between Mexico and the U.S., we trade every day $1.5 billion. That's more than $1 million per minute of all the products.
Mm-hmm.
Just in agricultural products, Mexico exports to the U.S. $70 million per day.
Ooh.
$70 million per day,
Mm-hmm.
roughly. Last year, we sold to the U.S. about $22 billion of food to the U.S., and we also import a lot from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
There's a linkage that we have been growing for many years. We sell tomatoes, but we buy pork.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sell avocados. 82% of the U.S. market is avocados from Mexico, but we also buy grain. So it is an ongoing trade in which many families get benefit. Mm-hmm. In the Mexican fields, we have 7 million people that work in there. 7 million people, and we are the 12th largest food producer in the world. We will become the 11th in about 2 more years. So international trade is not of who wins and who loses. It's about how we can complement. Our people win when we have these shared resources and trade going back and forward. The North American region is the most competitive region in the world. It is the most competitive. And we have made it that way because we have NAFTA, because we have many instruments. But the most important of all the instruments, the legal instruments, is the will, the political will. Mm-hmm. And that has given us now a very important grip worldwide, and I think that we have to keep it that way. We have to talk about the good things that we have done as nations working together through the years.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And we've also talked about how New Mexico State University can be more involved in Mexico with some of our programs, and we're particularly interested in student exchanges and faculty exchanges and some research projects and those kind of things. So I feel our relationship is growing all the time, and it's easier to grow when we have an Aggie as Secretary of Agriculture of Mexico.
Thank you very much.
Secretary Avalos, what's USDA about nowadays in terms of international trade in agricultural products?
It's important to emphasize that Mexico is an extremely, extremely important trading partner. They rank #2 in our market for agricultural exports. So it's been a huge, huge priority for the administration to expand exports, to expand our work with Mexico. I've said over the years that the United States and Mexico are neighbors, and it's really important that we be good neighbors because we're always going to be neighbors. Mm-hmm. That's not going to change. So at USDA, we put a lot of emphasis on collaboration between our two governments, between Secretary Calzada's department and Secretary Vilsack's department. An agency within SAGARPA is called Seneca, and my agency, APHIS, have very, very good cooperation. We work very well together to address sanitary and phytosanitary issues. Because today, we live in a world of free trade agreements. And so many countries focus on using sanitary, phytosanitary issues to regulate trade. And one thing that's really important to note is that between the United States and Mexico, over the last 7 years, we have had tremendous cooperation. We've worked together. Our technical people have found solutions to what used to be problems. And as a result, we've opened up markets for many products. As the Secretary mentioned, avocados. We were just in Guadalajara last month, made an announcement that we're opening the market for avocados from Mexico, from other states other than Michoacan, and the first state being the state of Jalisco. We're working on several other issues, I don't want to call them issues, several other topics that are so important to agriculture in this country. So I just want to say that the USDA has been a priority. At USDA, we've developed really good relationships with our counterparts in Mexico. And when I leave office in the not too distant future, I think that everything is already in place where this collaboration, this cooperation is going to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And I know you've been very helpful. As a matter of fact, you were helpful in reconnecting us with the Secretary in a visit that we had, I think, in Washington, D.C. So I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
that. I really appreciate the fact that the guacamole keeps coming our way because it's a favorite, but he's selling us more avocados. What are we going to be selling more to Mexico?
We, and I have an avocado story to tell you. and if we have time, I would like to tell avocado story. It really is important. And then I will talk about some of our products that are so
Okay.
important for agriculture in this country. I remember back when I was at the New Mexico Department of Agriculture many years ago. I can't remember the date, but I went with then Secretary of Agriculture Frank Du Bois.
Right?
We were invited by the Mexican government to go to the state of Michoacan to view the avocado production, and it was a reach asking our support to allow Mexico to export avocados to the United States. I remember at a dinner, all the ag secretaries were there and went around the table, and everyone was very concerned about bringing avocados from Mexico for phytosanitary reasons. And they came to me, and my opinion was, I'm a marketing guy. From a marketing perspective, we have more avocados in this country. If we have avocados available year-round, if we have avocados available in every city in this country, consumption is going to go up and everyone is going to benefit, and that's exactly what's happened. Today, avocado producers in this country are generating more income than they ever have with
Really?
avocados. And the market, because now there is a House Avocado Research and Promotion Board, where there's advertising, promotion, conducted not only by Mexico and the United States, but also by Peru and Chile. Consumption in this country continues to increase, and everyone is so optimistic that it's going to continue. But anyway,
Mr. Secretary, though, we need a balance of trade here. And so we're buying all these avocados. What are we selling to pay for the avocados?
That's a very good question. And I get that every day in Washington. It's got to be a two-way street. That's one thing that's important to note, that the Secretary and I fully agree that trade always has to be a two-way street. Always has to be a two-way street. And it has been. Livestock, meat, poultry. Mexico is a tremendous market for U.S. products. And feed grains, soybeans. Mexico continues to be a huge market. Corn. And I know I'm forgetting several commodities, but Mexico is a very, very important market for us.
Good.
And a very strategic market for us. And I can only see, Mr. Secretary and Mr. Secretary and Mr. Chancellor, that we're going to continue to increase. And we just need to work through New Mexico State University, the land-grant university of the state, to expand opportunities for producers, agribusiness, exporters from New Mexico.
Yeah. I think the Secretary and I agreed, and he's been in conversation with a lot of people here at New Mexico State University. There's plenty of opportunity for us to improve our trade in agriculture, but also in production agriculture. And so I think we'll end up coming up with some projects that do exactly that. Secretary Witte, you've been a kind of a marketer guy yourself in the background. You've been at this about 5 years. You know what New Mexico's interest might be. Kind of fill us in more from a state perspective in terms of international trade with Mexico.
You bet. So Secretary Avalos and Secretary Calzada hit on a couple of key points dealing with trade with Mexico is almost even back and forth between the United States and Mexico. But for New Mexico, we're interested in selling them some more of our wine products, some more of our breeding livestock, our dairy products. Those are some of the pecans. Actually, a lot of our pecans go into Mexico. We see nothing but growth in those areas from our state standpoint. The other thing we have to keep in mind with trade is, and I think each of the gentlemen hit on it, balancing. Our growing season is a set number of months, and we can expand our growing season by trading with Mexico those products that we can't grow in the off season. Chili products is a hot topic, so to speak, but with our processing facilities that we have here in New Mexico, they depend on that trade with Mexico, the products coming in to be able to run year round, as opposed to just seasonal like we used to in the past. The growth and the demand has continued to evolve. Some of the programs that Secretary Avalos put in place when he was a marketing specialist here with New Mexico to expand our green chili program. Now we have our green chili products in 2,700 stores throughout the United States. We depend on that. We're growing that market. We're going to have to depend on sources greater than New Mexico eventually, and that's going to enhance our New Mexico production as well. And that's what it's all about, is serving that need for the consumer.
Secretary Witte, what do the farmers say about it when all of a sudden chili comes in from Mexico and they say, well, that's kind of what we do? Also, is there any kind of pushback from the agricultural community when that happens, or are they understanding that free trade does cause that to happen?
Well, there's some pushback always when you see competition coming in, and you get the standard discussion points of cheap labor, this regulation, that kind of thing. But we have several farmers here in the Doñana region that also grow chili in Mexico, or other products in Mexico. And the reason for that is because in today's environment where you have natural disasters such as hailstorms or floods or things like that, your processors are wanting you to be able to assure that you're going to have a crop. They want you to grow crops more than 300 miles apart, as an example. So if you get hailed out here, you're not going to get hailed out down there. So there's a type of insurance policy there as well. So it takes a lot of explaining, a lot of understanding, and sure, you're going to have a segment that's always opposed to bringing in products from other countries, or even for that matter, other states. But when you look at the big picture, some of that's going to happen as the economies evolve.
Secretary, let me ask you, at one time, people believed there were barriers to entry for some industries from the United States to come to Mexico, and I'm not sure agriculture was one of them, but are there barriers to entry to have some of our farm and agricultural people actually own enterprises in Mexico and produce, say, their chili products down there as well as up here?
Almost none. If there is one in certain product, it has to do with the sanitary measures that some of them are seasonal or temporary, but we have turned down barriers of entry through sanitary measures, and that's a very important thing that Undersecretary Avalos was talking about. But speaking about the subject that we were talking before, if I may, I think that a very important matter in this whole game is to be able to complement. For example, talking about avocados, Mexico produces 70% of the avocados in the world. So we are an avocado producer. The rest is some for California, Peru, Costa Rica, a little bit. So we specialize on avocado. We specialize on mango because we have a lot of tropical areas. We are the #1 mango exporter in the world. We are the second producers of lemons. So we have some conditions to some products, and the U.S. has some conditions to some of the products. We have about 22 million hectares for cropping. The U.S. has 120 million hectares for cropping. It's about 6 times larger. So the U.S. is very good for producing grains, corn, yellow corn. We import yellow corn, about 8 million tons, 7 to 8 million tons. And then we ship from Mexico to the U.S. cattle. Is the corn transformed into something else? Yeah. So that's how trade works. And as a region, we have grown stronger. Yeah. And as countries, as individuals, I remember when the NAFTA was being discussed, the Mexican producers were very hesitant because in this area, technology matters, science matters, innovations matter. So when we went to NAFTA, 1994, Mexican producers of milk, they were very much afraid of NAFTA. Mexican producers of you name it. What happened through the years is that Mexican producers and government started investing in innovation, technology. We started having better programs of study like we are doing with the NMSU right now. So we grew better.
Yeah.
We had a trade deficit 20 years constantly until we had a surplus last year.
Oh.
20 years in a deficit until a surplus. So something happened.
Right.
This morning I was telling you, Mr. Chancellor, that we are moving from volume to value, and that is very important.
Very good. Okay, I'm going to move to the students. We have 6 students who will ask questions. I'm going to introduce them quickly. I guess you can wave your hand. I think they're sitting right here. Shayna Gallagher is a student in agricultural economics and business. She's on the far. There. You can step up there, Shayna. Let me just call you each at a time, and then you'll be on the camera there. So, Shayna, why don't you ask the first question and direct it to whomever you want to direct it to.
Yes. Once again, my name is Shayna Gallagher, and I'm an agricultural business and economics major. And my first question is actually for everyone on the panel, and it says, studies have predicted that the world will grow to over 9 billion people by the year 2050. What measures are being taken by agriculturists and policymakers to meet growing food demand worldwide?
Who would like to start with that question? Secretary,
I can.
and I think Secretary Avalos probably has some programs in mind as well. But
Okay, but just a quick answer. In fact, for 2050, we'll have to produce 70% more. And we cannot have more land than what I told you before, but we can work in 3 different aspects. I think that the most important is science. Agriculture is science, and we have to look at that way. And with science is technology, is innovation, is to have more knowledge, and to take care of the environment. I think that those are the 4 or 5 important aspects in which we have to work to be able to cope with the 70% demand that we'll have over the next years.
And I think it's important that you mentioned the environment, because a lot of people are fearful of growth because of damage to the environment. And so that's one of the criteria you put in terms of that growth. Secretary Avalos, what's out there to help us meet that food demand?
We recognize this situation very clearly at USDA. And through several Farm Bill programs, we do have a safety net to maintain strong agricultural production in this country. But really a key that most people don't realize, that USDA strongly supports research. Research is a key to the future. The land-grant universities play a very, very important role in this future. Farmers yesterday had challenges they had to meet. And it was innovation, it was technology, whether it be new seed, new equipment, new irrigation systems. And it got them up to the next level. Farmers today, ranchers today, they have other challenges. For example, we have challenges such as the Food Modernization Act. We have climate change. We have consumer demands that we've never had before. Okay, so to address all this, technology, innovation comes to play, because we have to give the producer the tools to meet the challenges today. And USDA, through the Agricultural Research Service, through the Farm Service Agency, and several other agencies and programs within the department, focus on providing the tools and providing a mechanism for farmers to meet this growing demand.
Secretary Witte, what would you say on that?
There is a tremendous demand coming, and one of my biggest concerns that I've had since I've been in office is that New Mexico is the second oldest state in the nation when it comes to agriculturalists. And if we're going to feed that 70% more population, we've got to grow that next generation of agriculturalists. We've done that through our AgriFuture program. Programs like through the Cooperative Extension Service and the research programs that we have at the universities are going to be critical, but showing that opportunity for our young farmers to succeed is going to be important. And so, it's a great question, something we're really concerned about. And I see, New Mexico is in a great position. We had, during the last census, we had the highest growth rate of young farmers getting back into agriculture than any state in the nation.
Oh, wonderful.
So I'm the most optimistic guy there is because of you guys.
But to your credit, I think you have programs to actually encourage young people
Absolutely.
to get back in agriculture. And we talked to Secretary about his issues about how are we going to fill the void of people interested in production agriculture, particularly as owners. I'm going to ask Caleb to ask. Caleb Gustin is Agricultural and Extension Education. And by the way, the reason he looks funny, he's also Pistol Pete. And you classic Aggies would recognize Pistol Pete. He's cleaned up a little for today's performance.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chancellor Carruthers. So my question digs a little bit into your background. So this question is for everyone. Your background in either business or agriculture, how did it assist you in your journey to where you are today?
Let's start with you, Secretary.
It provided the foundation. I grew up on a family ranch, medium-sized family ranch up in northern New Mexico, and from day one, you learn the responsibilities without even knowing what you're learning, because you're just out there doing it, and you fall into that love of the land, the love of taking care of cattle and all the other crops that you might have on your place. But more than anything, it gives you the appreciation for what you've got, the appreciation for the land, your ties to the land. You start looking out at the future, and then you get involved in programs like 4-H or FFA, and it really allows you to grow and really see the world and see what else is out there. I had a great opportunity to come to New Mexico State University, and Chancellor took the slogan all about discovery. A lot of us discovered more than what we care to share today, but that really provides that foundation for what we fall back on in our jobs today. I think about, as I crisscross the state or the nation or even the world, you look out the window, and every minute I'm thinking about decisions that I'm having to make that are going to impact either the people or the environment. And it goes back to that foundation from my youth.
Mm-hmm. Secretary Avalos?
I also grew up on a family farm, not a ranch, but a farm. But it's one thing that's a little different. That family farm didn't belong to my family. My family was the labor on that farm. I grew up on a Simpson farm right here in the Mesilla Valley. In fact, I just saw Tommy Simpson last week. Very good friend of the family. But most important, especially the young people, and being in Washington, D.C., and I've said this many a time, growing up on the farm, I got values, I got a work ethic that I carried through my whole career. Now, I've been in agriculture in one form or another my whole career. Got a degree in agronomy, degree in ag and extension education. I wasn't ever in 4-H. I wasn't ever in FFA. I guess I was what the dean called, I think at lunch, a non-traditional student, but either way, I've been in agriculture in one form or another. Working at New Mexico State University, I worked to develop export markets, primarily in Mexico. I worked very hard to develop domestic markets. Secretary Witte talked about the chili promotions all over the country. Well, we worked on that. My staff and I worked on that, and today the fruits of the labor is showing. And so anyway, that's kind of been my experience that I learned from being at New Mexico State University and from being in agriculture at a younger age.
I want to thank you for that marketing program. I spent some time in Washington, D.C. years ago, and you couldn't find green chili back there. You had to have friends who would ship it out to you. And so we New Mexicans were suffering mightily until your marketing program kicked in. Secretary, your background in agriculture?
Well, my background is in business, is in economics. In NMSU, I went to the business school, and I continued on economics. But besides that, I think that the thing that I'm better for is promotion. This is a field in which you have to promote. And we were speaking today, Mr. Carruthers, that in the Mexican agricultural sector, we urgently need younger guys to participate. The age of the people in the Mexican fields is between 50 and 55. And I'm pretty sure that it happens the same in the States. So we have to make a big promotion of younger kids to participate in producing food for the world. It doesn't have only to do with personal income or personal well-being. I think that that has to do also with social responsibility, in which, by the way, they make good monies. So the government has to be with them, either with education, with grants, economic grants, in which they can participate to produce and live, of course, live well. And I think that the fields of study that I attended through my life gave me that opportunity in which to be a promoter. And NMSU for me was so important, not only because of the educational background in which they gave me support, but also because of my family. Just married in Mexico, just came here. My first years of marriage were here with Sandra, my wife. As I said, my daughter was born here. But I got the opportunity to see a bigger picture than home. Mm-hmm. International trade. What happens when you join? What happens when you share? What happens when you learn from others? So that's my basic background.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, I like the fact that you continue to bring up kind of social responsibility. And many of us, I grew up on a farm as well, a dairy farm, milk cows, did all that kind of thing. And I think people believe it to be just really hard work. It's sometimes 7 days a week kind of hard work, depending on what kind of farm. But we never thought of it about, oftentimes when we're growing up as young people, we didn't think about contributing to the bigger cause. We just had to go out and milk the cows. And I've never heard anyone but yourself talk about how agriculture does have a responsibility to feed the world. And I think it comes up once in a while, but as we talk to our young people, that would be attractive to the young people we have today. Now, back in my days, you went to college and got a job. But the young people today really want to do something worthwhile. I mean, not that I didn't want to do anything worthwhile. I did some things unworthwhile. I got into politics, but actually these students want to be helpful. They want to serve. And I think what you say is a statement that our young people ought to be hearing more and more. It's a wonderful industry to be in, and all of us ought to be proud of that industry, but it's also just more than making a buck.
It's social responsibility, but as well as we ask people in the fields for social responsibility, I think that as well we have to ask society to have more respect for the people who produce in the fields. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we take it for granted. Mm-hmm. About 2 months ago, I went to Michoacan. And Michoacan is impressive. It's the most productive Mexican producer of food in almost all the fields. And we were talking to a lot of women producers. And one of them, she stood up and she gave a very nice and very scented speech. She said that, Mr. Secretary, perhaps in your life you will need an architect so that he can build your house. Or perhaps in your life you will need a lawyer. I hope you don't. But she said, but 3 times a day, you will need a people, somebody who works the field because you eat 3 times a day. You will need him every day for the rest of your life. And that is very true. I know we know it, but we take it for granted.
And we don't think about it.
Because it comes to most of the people in the world, it comes naturally. So we have to let people, or to tell people to respect more the people who is working in the fields.
Absolutely. Uriel Munoz is an agriculture business and government major, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't you go right ahead?
Thank you, Chancellor. This question is for Secretary Calzada and Secretary Witte concerning chili farming. Earlier, Secretary Witte mentioned that chili is a hot topic for both countries. I was wondering if you guys can give us some insight on similarities and differences between farming practices between Mexico and the U.S.
Secretary Witte, you want to start?
Sure. Chili it's always a hot topic. The farming practices are very similar in both countries, as far as my knowledge goes. Now you've got what the difference is that Mexico can have a little bit longer growing season at times, so they can grow crops into a different few months later than what we do up here. They have the exact same issues that we do in Mexico. We talk about farm labor shortages. Guess what? In Mexico, when I sit and visit with the farm labor folks out of Mexico, they have the exact same problems. People just don't grow up wanting to be farm labor hands anymore. So we're having to deal with that. So mechanization is coming into both countries. Technology is going to be key. So really they're similar. Some of our farmers that grow chili here also grow in Mexico, as I said earlier, because it extends the growing season, but it also shifts the risk. So if they lose a crop there, they don't lose it here, or vice versa. So you see a lot of similarities in both countries.
Secretary, any comments about?
I think I agree fully with the Secretary. We have the same challenges. We have, let's say, the same opportunities. A lot of our producers are used to growing chili. That's why they're good. Many producers in Mexico are going into greenhouses, and when you go to greenhouses, you gain better production. You have more control of pests. You have a better control of water. If you do it right, then you can sell your production 5 years in advance. Because everything is under control. Like, for example, let's not talk about chili, but let's talk about tomatoes. Tomatoes growers, they grow 70 kilograms per square meter. That's about 12 times more than in the soil, 12 times. But besides that, they can sell it 5 years in advance, so they can have a better price. That's what we talk about when we talk about technology, innovation, scientific science applied to producing in the fields. You get a better price. So that we are competing not only on the product, we are competing much beyond the product. It has to do with seeds, has to do with climate and temporalities. It has to do with so many things, in which, to be honest, 20 years ago, if we would be speaking about, we would be talking about this, Mexico would not be in the same position as to speak about innovation and technology and investment as we are now. We have become very much in some of the products.
Thank you. Daniel, we're going to have to move along, if you don't mind, because we have 3 other students and we're running short of times. Now, this is Daniel Zaragoza, and he is from Mexico.
Once again, my name is Daniel Zaragoza. I'm from Guaymas, Sonora, Mexico, and I'm majoring in agronomy, crop consulting, and horticulture business. My question is for Secretary Calzada and Secretary Witte, and it refers to agricultural research. Do we have enough agricultural extension research or technology to produce enough food to feed the world over the next decades?
Do we have enough
Technology
and extension? You know, today these universities are so important, and the new research that's coming out is going to be so important. Water management, nutrient management is going to be key. And as I see the programs that USDA and SAGARPA have in the various countries, you're seeing more emphasis put on resources. And because everybody knows that land is going to be less for agriculture. So today, we have enough for today. The research is going to have to continue and be enhanced for the future tomorrow.
Secretary, any comments?
I would say if we develop enough technology and extension, we would definitely would have it. We are finding new ways to produce faster and better. Our population grows about 2% per year, a little less than that. And our output grows about 3.5, 4% per year. So the answer would be yes, but it's not only, we cannot think only for Mexico. We have to think beyond that. We have a world challenge that we have to meet, and Mexico has to pay its contribution.
And I am aware that there's a new program in New Mexico State to help develop extension services in Mexico. I'm not as conversant as I should be, but the extension services have been very productive for the United States, going way back to the time when we thought we had to extend the research from land grants out to the farmers, and it's been very successful in this country. Thank you very much, Daniel. The next person is Rafael Perez. Rafael is a student, a doctorate of economic development student here, and he is also from Mexico.
Hello, good afternoon. My question is for Secretary Witte. And how could the agriculture industry of New Mexico benefit from the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement if it is implemented?
Oh, the TPP is agricultural trade is very dependent, as Secretary Avalos said, on these free trade agreements. I'll just put it in a nutshell. There are countries such as Japan and those in Asia that have high tariffs on agricultural products from the United States, up to like 40% on beef and dairy products. Those agreements, as they are currently negotiated, would eventually eliminate those down, some of them to zero and some of them to around 8%. Bottom line is New Mexico would benefit about $29 million a year plus in the beginning, and continue to grow and expand, especially with beef, dairy, and some of our spirit products. And pecans, tree nuts. How can I forget tree nuts? Number one county in the nation, in the world right here. Our pecans face a 34% tariff in a lot of the Asian markets.
Thank you very much. Our next student is Anita Rodriguez, who's getting a doctorate in marketing.
Thank you, Chancellor. My question is for Secretary Witte regarding New Mexico farmland. Every year, New Mexico farmlands continue to diminish. According to USDA, National Agricultural Statistics Service, farmland data indicated that the average farm size has decreased by 29% from 2005 to 2014. The valley continues to be subdivided for non-agricultural uses. What can be done to help deter this?
Number one is opportunity. The thing that part of those statistics are an outcropping of some of our successes in bringing back into production small parcels. We, through programs of the Department of Agriculture, some of the programs through USDA, we're actually encouraging people that have 5 or 10 acres, they put in hoop houses. Now they're being counted as farms where they weren't in the past, and that brought the average size of the farm acres down. That doesn't mean we lost farm acres. What that does mean is we put more land back into production. That's part of that growth that we had in the state of New Mexico. But it's all about opportunity. It's creating that opportunity and showing especially the young folks, how they can grow beneficial crops and market them in a local level, either a farmer's market or a restaurant. We've got folks up in the northern part of the state, even here in Doña Ana County, that have small parcels, and they sell 100% of their production to local restaurants. And it's those kind of programs and showing the opportunity that's going to turn that around.
And Secretary, I think we talked today, Mexico has a similar issue of having small farms, and to try to find opportunities for small farmers to make the kind of quality living that you suggested. In fact, one idea that I think was a good one and I'll tease you with it, see if you remember, but it happens to be organic farming
Yes,
is a possibility in Mexico. So would you want to comment on that?
Of course, Chancellor, because we spoke about having an educational system in which we could bring people from Mexico or from New Mexico, or the U.S. to Mexico to get knowledge in organics. Organics is the new trend in the world. For example, in Mexico, 5 years ago, we used to have 25,000 hectares. Now we have 400,000. We are the fourth largest producer of organics in the world, in Mexico. And we think in about 2 more years, we'll have 700,000 acres of organics. But the most important thing about this, besides the generation of economies for the region or the country as a whole, is that most of the producers are small producers. They have 5 hectares or less. So the government helps them with machinery. We help them with knowledge, with irrigational systems. They get together, they grow almost together, they pack together, they ship, and they export together. So it is a win-win situation for everybody.
Secretary Avalos, organic farming in the USDA, do you have programs to support organic farming? And
Absolutely. For the past 7 years, we've put considerable effort into strengthening the, I run the National Organic Program.
okay.
And we now have an industry in this country that's worth over $40 billion. We have over 22,000 organic farm operations in the country. We have equivalency agreements with 4 or 5 different countries, and we're almost there with equivalency agreement with Mexico.
Okay, we're going to move into what we're going to have to do is some sound bites because we're running short of time, and I want each student to ask. We got 10 minutes, so ask a quick question of one person, and I need a sound bite answer because I want the students to come one more time. Channing, you're on.
Yes, Shane again. And my question is for Secretary Avalos, and it's the United States has experienced extreme weather variability with a continued drought in California, yet the highest amount of bushels of corn per acre in the Midwest. From your perspective, how are agriculturists adapting to climate change?
Agriculture in this country is always changing, always adapting, and really the answer would be multi. One, technology, innovation, new varieties, new irrigation systems, new equipment. And 2 is they're just not farming the way they used to. They don't plant the same crops. Like for example, in California, they pulled a lot of citrus trees because they couldn't maintain, they couldn't sustain. So really, the agriculture in this country is adjusting. And over time, they'll find the right niche to continue.
Okay, Caleb, one question directed to someone, please.
Yes, sir. Secretary Calzada, this one's for you. So we've talked a little bit about technology and getting the younger generation more involved in agriculture. My question is, from your perspective in brief, how does social media play a role in that?
Okay, very important. As we have leaders in social media or producers sharing their experiences in terms of gains, for us is a plus. I live it every day because I try to be in different states at least 3 times a week in Mexico, and there's a lot of young guys that are going with us to the events or going to the field. They share, they are able to transmit to younger generations or their generation their will to crop the land. So social media for us is very much important.
I think the Secretary has a Twitter account, by the way, and 2 weeks ago I have a Twitter account, so we'll communicate with each other through social media. You're on next.
This is for Undersecretary Avalos. How might genetically modified organism labeling affect trade between the 2 countries?
It's a good question. Keep in mind that the GMO Labeling Act was passed by Congress. My agency, AMS, has to implement that act. Right now we're evaluating. We're still in the process of implementation. But just preliminary, it's going to impact primarily on multi-ingredient products. Mexico exports very few of those to the United States. And also meat and dairy are exempt. So the answer would be very minimal.
Daniel?
So my question is for everyone, and it deals with water efficiency. What approaches can be developed to increase water use efficiency in agriculture, and what is the cost effectiveness of these approaches?
I think we only need
Water?
one. Who wants to choose the water question?
What, water efficiency?
Water efficiencies?
Water efficiency, yes.
Well, water efficiency is going to is critical as water resources become less and less, and we've got to produce more and more food. The technologies in delivering water to the plant are there, and they're evolving. So you're going to see tremendous new ways of actually delivering specific amounts of water to specific plants as we grow, especially into the greenhouse environment in the future.
And Secretary Witte, what do you see in the way of water reclamation as adding more water resources to agriculture, or the development of plants that are somewhat resistant to, say, salt that might be from brackish water?
I think as you know, university research and other research areas look into salt toxicity and things like that, you're going to see advances there. There's a lot of opportunities to reclaim water, use brackish water, if we could clean it up. And I think, you know, I keep hearing of new technologies that can be out there and available. If we ever figure that out, we've got great opportunities in agriculture down the road.
Okay, now we're at Rafael.
Okay. This question is for Secretary Calzada and anyone else interested. Are there any initiative for cooperation in terms of advanced biofuel production between Mexico and the U.S.?
Biofood?
Biofuels
Biofuels.
production.
Oh,
Advanced
biofuels.
biofuels.
Yes, there's a lot of exchange of information. There's a lot of investors making analysis about to invest in biofuels. Now, biofuels are only, let's say, they have a market depending on the price of the oil. Now the price of the oil is very low. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people that were thinking about biofuels 3 or 4 years ago, now they are thinking about something else. To my knowledge, I'm not an expert, but it's just common sense. But we do exchange a lot of information.
Anita, you have the last question.
My question is for Secretary Calzada and Undersecretary Avalos regarding remaining competitive within global markets. How can you ensure New Mexico and Mexico remain competitive within international markets when previously U.S.-made / Mexico-made products have been moved overseas to be produced or processed?
Secretary Avalos, you wanted to start that?
I think the way that the U.S. and Mexico remain competitive is through cooperation, is through trade agreements. For example, we've had NAFTA in place for a long time, but we just negotiated a TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And there we address a lot of issues that makes us non-competitive, unfair trade practices. So that's a key point. But really the true, probably the best answer to this is the land-grant universities. The land-grant universities are critical to developing innovation technologies is going to make us competitive going into the future.
Secretary Calzada?
And something else I would add. We have to acknowledge, we both countries, governments and society, we have to acknowledge how important is the other country for the economy of Mexico or the U.S. You know, for our products, the destination of our products is 82% the U.S. And for the U.S. products, we're the second buyer of U.S. products. We buy more from the U.S. than Russia, India, Brazil, and China together. All together, well, Mexico buys more from the U.S. So we have to acknowledge the importance of our neighborhood and of what we have been building through the last X number of years.
Okay, Secretary Witte, a 15-second soundbite on anything you want to talk about from these wonderful students who've asked questions, or anything you want to add to it. Go right ahead.
All right. You know, I'll just give a plug in New Mexico State University. New Mexico State University has been my home for many years. Students, you can find yourself here, and you can create great opportunities through this university. Department of Agriculture happens to sit at New Mexico State University, and I'm most fortunate for that. and we've got great leadership here on campus. But the opportunities in agriculture, the opportunities to work with our partners, our neighbors down in Mexico, they make this job real, and it makes my job really fun.
Secretary Avalos, a quick one.
Thank you to New Mexico State University. You guys keep the tradition going, 'cause it really is important. Haven't been in Washington, D.C. 7 years. I am so proud that I graduated from New Mexico State University.
And Secretary, the last
I
word.
just want to thank you, Chancellor, and my friends in the panel, all the guys that have been making questions. It makes me feel very happy to be at home. As I told you before, this is home to me, and I will keep on working to have a better relationship and better understanding between the two countries, and of course, myself to the university.
Well, we have great Aggie pride, and we have pride in our graduates here who've distinguished themselves as leaders in agriculture. They came from different backgrounds, and look how they've flourished, and they've led our state, our countries, Mexico and the United States. And not many universities have had this kind of talent doing the kinds of work they're doing. And they've gotten together, and they know each other, and they work together. And so the collaboration between Mexico, the United States is strong and getting stronger. Thank you all very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Muy bien. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You bet.